Welcome back to Well and Worthy Life podcast. I'm super excited. I've got another great guest today. And boy, I have so many questions for her, and you probably will too after listening to this podcast. So I've got Ashley Laird with me. Ashley was brought to my attention because she and her husband own Osteostrong right here in Birmingham, Alabama. And if you know me, if you follow me on Instagram anyway, you've seen that I've been going to Osteostrong. Osteostrong is, well, Ashley can tell you better about it, but I first ran across Osteostrong when I was at the Tony Robbins conference right before COVID. So it must have been 2019. I went with my son to the Tony Robbins conference, and it was amazing. We did walk on fire. And so I saw it there. Really didn't think, I was like, that's really cool. But I live in Birmingham and we were out in California. So never imagined it would come to Birmingham. Then I bought Tony Robbins' latest book. I guess it's his latest book, Life Force. And again, he talks about Osteostrong in there. And again, I thought, that's really cool. And then guess what? We got an Osteostrong right here in Birmingham, Alabama, which is really cool because, if you've, again, been around, I work with perimenopause and menopause women. And this is one of the things that a lot of women suffer with as they go through menopause. Our bones become weaker and we can get osteopenia, we can get osteoporosis. And if you've ever seen that woman walking over with her back hunched over, or somebody older that's gotten a lot of broken bones, then that's not what you want to be if you want longevity in life. So I'm super excited to introduce you to Ashley today. Ashley, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's just get right into your story because, boy, you have a story. So I know that you and your husband opened Osteostrong probably, a couple of years ago now? Is it 2 years old?
We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary.
1 year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But it's probably been in the works for more than 1 year, right?
It has.
Yeah. Because I owned a business too. I know it takes a while to get it up and running.
It does.
But let's go back to when your husband, Matt, came in. Well, let's go back a little bit further too, because I think there's a bigger story here about your whole life. Okay. So Ashley, you and Matt got married and started having babies and life was great, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so you've got 3 boys,
Yes.
2, and 1. Okay. So I've got 3 boys and I know what 3 boys are. Mine were 5, 3 and newborn. So mine were a little spaced a little bit further than yours. And I cannot even imagine. And were you a stay-at-home mom at that point, right?
I was, yes.
Okay. So then what happened when they were 3, 2, and 1?
So we found out that a family member was expecting and she had a history of drug use and that she was looking for a place for her baby. We had always been open to the idea of adoption, but really didn't have a timeline for that. But this was one day in November that I found out about this and just felt like the Lord was really saying, this is your time, that this is what I want you to do. And so we decided in November that we were going to adopt. I had never met this, the birth mom. I did not know her at all. So we decided in November and she was born at the end of January.
Now, were you concerned with the drug use that she had been doing, or did you even consider that part? Like there might be something wrong?
Sure. And I did. And I took some time to, visit with people that I knew that had adopted kiddos that had some drug exposure in the womb. And typically what you see is, some learning challenges. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, there's not global effects like there were with Tinley. So I was surprised. I was not expecting that.
Okay. So you've got these boys, 3, 2, and 1, and now you're going. And how old? When Tinley was born? How old was your youngest son?
He was like 18 months.
Okay. Oh my heavens. Oh my. So just like, okay. So now Tinley's born, and what did you know, right? Were you in the delivery room with her?
I was,
Oh, how
yes.
sweet.
It
You
was
and
very
Matt,
special.
I'm
Matt
assuming.
was actually not. He was at home with the kids. So it was
Oh,
just
okay.
me. It was just me and the birth mom. And it was very sweet. I mean, she thanked me in that moment for giving Tinley a life that she knew she couldn't give her.
Oh, that was very sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
So did you know right away that there were going to be issues?
So we knew that she was going to have to go through withdrawal because mom had spent some time in like a rehab facility on some maintenance medication, had really no expectation for what that was going to be like. Like I said, I had talked to some other moms that had experienced it,
Mhm.
but it happened pretty quickly. And so we were there about a month and I started noticing that she was not opening one of her eyes as much as the other. And so I started asking questions and they had just really been struggling to wean her off the methadone. That's what they use,
Mhm.
for babies. And anyway, one thing led to another and we found out that she had toxoplasmosis, which is a parasite. That's why they tell pregnant women to not change cat litter and yeah, stay away from cats while they're
Really?
pregnant. Yes. And so that kind of opened the door for all of the things that we found that were going on with her. They ended up having to actually sedate her to get her off the methadone so that we could see neurologically what was actually happening.
Wow. Okay. So this was month one. And I mean, I'm assuming now you're going to the hospital every day. I mean, you're her mother at this point
Right.
because the
Yes.
the birth mother is, gone
Yes.
on. And so okay, so you're there every day. I mean, I just can't imagine. And you're not sure what the long-term consequences are. And you've got these three really baby boys at home that you want to take care of too. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of is I had a brief moment in time. There was nothing even close to being compared to what you went through. But when my oldest son was 4, he had bacterial meningitis and was in the hospital. And I had a 2-year-old at home, and I was a stay-at-home mom too. And then I was pregnant with my youngest son, and I just remember just so many things going through my head. So, I worried about that I wasn't with my 2-year-old. I worried about the baby that I was carrying, and I worried about my
Absolutely.
baby that had bacterial meningitis. I mean, like, so you've
Yes.
got now 4 children that you are very concerned about. And, how did you deal with that?
We had a wonderful support system. During that time, our church family really came around us and helped. My youngest, Cooper, at the time was not going to preschool. Our church has a preschool, and they
Mhm.
made a spot for him so that he could come, so that I could try to be at the hospital. And I mean, really just had to lean into that support. And I will say, those days, Jesus was so close. I really felt him carrying me and giving me the strength to do it. I mean, there's just really no other explanation.
Yeah. So I think that is so true. I mean, that's where my strength comes from too. And I didn't even tell you at the same time, my father was dying of cancer.
Oh my
So,
gosh. Yeah.
so it was a lot going on with me too. And I look back to those days. Oh, and we were moving. I
Oh
mean,
my word.
like what are you all doing
What
here? I
else?
mean, like, this is craziness, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that when you are in some of your toughest moments of your life, it's when you're closest to God, and you look back and you're like, how, if somebody would have told me that this was going to be my life, I would have said, no, I cannot do that. But only
Absolutely.
God only gives us those things that He knows we can handle, and we can come through it. So, wow. I mean, that's a lot. Okay. So a month into it, they're doing, I guess, testing Tinley, and what did they find out?
So she ended up being in the hospital for about 12 weeks. They found the toxoplasmosis. They were able to start treatment for that, which were some pretty exotic medication. There are only a few pharmacies that will even deal with it. And so we had to get it from a pharmacy in Tuscaloosa. They had to overnight us. The day she was supposed to be released, I had to drive to Tuscaloosa to pick up her medication before she could be released from the hospital. But there were issues. She had, started having some feeding issues, regulating her temperature, what they would call neurostorms, where she was just very overstimulated and would just cry. And so it was kind of just a process of getting her to a point to where she was stable enough to bring her home. So that happened, like I say, about 3 months after her stay. But her first year home was very difficult. She cried a lot. And what most moms had told me that had dealt with babies that had drug exposure was skin to skin, just cuddle them and love them. And that skin to
Mhm.
skin really calms their nervous system. Well, it was entirely the opposite for her because she was so
Wow.
overstimulated by everything, by touch, by sound. There was just it was like her nervous system was just totally overstimulated all the time. So we finally got, her medications leveled out after about the first year to where she was a little bit more stable. But we ended up going to a hospital in Tennessee because we thought that she could potentially be having seizures. But they did an MRI, which nobody had done before. And they were able to tell us that not only did she have the toxoplasmosis, but there was evidence of prior hemorrhaging on her brain and oxygen deprivation, which were both from the drug exposure. It also showed that there's a portion of her brain that never develops. So the doctor was wonderful, and she was able to tell us, look, she's probably always going to live with you. She's probably never going to be able to make complex decisions for herself, which was hard to hear, but it was good to have answers and, to kind of know what
Right.
to expect.
Right. What did you expect?
You get to a point to where you just kind of have to take it day by day
Mhm.
and take it as it comes. I mean, there have been so many things that you just can't know, and every child is so different challenges that we face. I mean, just this past October she had to have this past August she had to have a major hip surgery. We had to take her to Texas, and they literally like cut her femur and turn it and reattach it because her hip was coming completely out of socket. So nobody can prepare you, for the things, but you just have to, you just have to learn to take it day by day and realize that we're not really in control. As much as we like to think that we are, we're not in control. And so it has helped me to learn to really, and I struggled and wrestled with it for a while. I'm not a saint, it's not anything like that, but I've
No.
come to a point where I've learned, I have to just trust the Lord and trust that he is in control, and that even as on the hardest days, he says that he works all things together for good for those that love him. And so that's where we walk.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm thinking about the boys in that first year and how she cried all the time and from overstimulation too. And let's face it, 3 boys are
Boys
wild
are
and
loud.
crazy. Like, okay. Yeah, I would cry all the time. Even like my mom used to tell me, she'd say, when she would keep my boys, she'd go, I don't know why you haven't run away yet. So I'm thinking that, this is all, how do you keep the house quiet? And but the other thing I'm thinking about is how it is affecting these 3 boys.
Yeah. Yeah. And I still to this day worry about that a lot.
Mhm.
At the time, Abel went to public school, kindergarten and first grade, and I will never forget his kindergarten teacher told me they had a little boy in their class that had autism and that for the most part was nonverbal. And she said Abel was the first one to go up to him and take him by the hand and really treat him like a friend. And
Oh.
so that was like a God wink moment for me, that just being reminded that yes, their life is very different than what it would have
Mhm.
been, but they are also learning so much. I mean, they absolutely adore her and always have, so even now, like they are learning how to take care of somebody else. I'm like,
Mhm.
it's going to be great. It's going to help them be
Mhm.
better husbands and fathers because they are learning how to think about somebody besides themselves and just really see people for who they are and not just what they look like or their abilities. So
Mhm.
it's a challenge for sure because now they're much older and they're very active, but even still, like it's a very tender place for them.
Oh, Yeah, I can imagine they will end up being, so much more thoughtful, and they probably are now. I mean, just because of what their daily life. So now you are a stay-at-home mom with them. Your husband, Matt, he's in the mortgage business. So I'm assuming too, y'all got tons of bills from all this stuff, right? Like,
We were fortunate that Tinley was, because of her disability and because of the adoption, that she was able to have secondary Medicaid. So she
oh,
always had insurance, but she got the secondary Medicaid. So thankfully, I mean, that was just a way that the Lord, took care of us,
wow.
that it picked up
Yes.
everything insurance didn't cover.
Oh,
I know.
I mean, because that's one more stress, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
let me ask you this, because I'm as I coach women, I'm always asking them, and they're like, we as women, we take care of so many things, right? And so, how did you take care of you, though?
Not very. In the midst of all of that, I ended up in the hospital for a couple of days because I got really sick and I could keep nothing down. And I ended up with a diagnosis of celiac, which I had
Mm,
never, really had issues that I knew of before. But I believe that there are things that are lying in us that just, with the right circumstances, can be activated. And so I think just the stress of all of it just turned that on, inside of me. And I just didn't, I mean, you go and you go, and like you said, you take care and you do. I was just surviving. I didn't know how to manage
mhm,
that stress. And I would say it's really been just within the past year that feel like I've begun to start figuring that out. But I mean, it showed up in, like I said, in my health and in my body, and just everything kind of changed. I've seen firsthand what stress can do to you, and it's not good.
yeah, that's exactly why I started Well and Worthy Life, because I was being a caregiver of my stepfather who had Lewy body dementia, and the more I researched it, they were talking about how caregivers, the stress that are on caregivers, it can make them sick. And in the situation of a caregiver in dementia, it was really talking about like a husband wife thing, that a
Sure.
lot of times the partner passes away before the person with dementia.
Hmm.
And it was like this eye-opening thing for me. I was like, wow, stress can have a huge impact on us.
Oh, yeah.
So we have, I mean, stress is going to be there. Stress is going to be in your life. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
just going to be. So how have you learned to deal with it?
I have had to learn to, one, be able to admit that I have limits.
Mhm.
That we literally cannot do it all, and humble myself to be able to ask for and accept help when I need
Mm.
it. That is not a strength of mine.
Mine
um,
either, girl. I feel you. I am the same way. I just had one of my team members tell me that. She was like, just ask for help if you need it. I'm like, I know. I just have a hard time with that. Yeah.
Agreed, agreed. And I think that that's probably true for a lot of women. I mean,
Mhm.
should be able to handle it. And if we don't, then it feels like a failure. But I think that's something that, the enemy uses to isolate us. Like, I don't think that
Mhm.
people do not view needing help as a weakness for the most part. So
No, in fact, people want to
I want
help.
to help.
They
Yes,
just don't know how to help.
exactly. Yes, yes.
Mhm.
So I've had to learn to do that, learn to take, just find little pockets of time for myself, to be able to pour into the things that do fuel me. And honestly, a lot of the things that I have learned along the way of opening Osteostrong
Mhm.
have been a huge help. We have red light and our biocharger and the PMF mat and even the vibration plate. All of those things help lower your cortisol levels. And it's truly helped me in that way.
No, I bet. Okay, so let's get back. Let's get to Still Strong. Okay, so now you've got these children, and how old are they when Matt comes home? I'm assuming Matt comes home one day. I can just see it. You're taking care of everybody. Well, first, wait. You start homeschooling, right? At some point.
Yes, yes. So we took
Wait,
that.
what made you decide to do that first? Like,
Well, I had always kind of wanted to, but when Ava went to kindergarten, like with where Tinley was, there was just no way in our journey. There was just no way we could do it then. So when COVID hit, Abel was in first grade. We did that last little bit, online, and it was horrible.
Mm,
And, I just I didn't want to do any more of that. I didn't want to send my kids to school in a mask. Like, we enjoyed the time that we had being together. And so I was like, well, what better time than now to jump into it? And it's been phenomenal for our family. I mean, again, it's hard.
mhm,
Everybody's like, I don't have the patience. I couldn't do it. I'm like, patience is a learned skill. It's something you grow,
mm.
but it has been so great. I mean, the relationship between my boys has just flourished so much. And even I'm able to know them and their personalities better because we're together all the time.
Mhm. I bet that I can see that, especially they're so close in age. Okay, so you started homeschooling at COVID. That makes sense to me
Yes.
because I said I was so thankful my children were all grown during that because I can't imagine sending my child to school in a mask either. So you started homeschooling them. Do you ever see them going back to regular school?
I would be I don't intend for them to. I mean, we're always kind of open to the conversation at one point if that's something that they just really, really desire.
Mhm.
But we really love, the co-op and the program that we're involved in, and love the idea of just really being able to teach them to love to learn and teach
Mhm.
them to think critically, for themselves, and give them that
Mhm.
freedom and flexibility to kind of dive into things that they're interested in. And let's be honest, I think by the time, they're teenage-ish, they're going to appreciate being able to sleep in.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
I don't think it'll be an issue.
Yeah, exactly.
But we'll
And
see.
you can travel more, you can do a lot of things, I think, that are
Yes.
kind of really cool, especially if you've got already, what about, are they sports at all? Do they like sports?
Yes. Yes. So
So what about sports?
my oldest plays lacrosse. This is actually his first year, but he loves it.
Mhm.
And then the younger two, they do baseball. My middle, really, Lucas, he really loves baseball. But they do flag football and basketball and
Right,
all the
right.
things.
Okay, so then when did Matt come in and start talking? Because he was the one that found Osteostrong, right?
He was, yes,
So
yes.
when was that? Was this during COVID?
Goodness, I guess had to have been right after COVID. So it was, let's see, it was 2021
Okay.
that he started talking about that.
How did
And
he even find it?
so Dr. Jaquish is the biomedical engineer that created the osteogenic loading equipment. And he has a banded workout system. It's called the X3. You do it on a vibration plate, so it increases growth hormone, and it's variable resistance training. And so Matt's always just into things.
Mhm.
And so he kind of started doing some research on Dr. J and seeing, who he was and what else he did. And so he stumbled across Osteostrong, and I guess he filled out some online something. And so there are 3 other centers in the state. There's one in
Oh,
Fairhope and
really?
2 in Mobile. And so Josh is our regional guy in Fairhope. And so he called me. I was like, hey, I hear you're interested in opening a franchise. This is all without my knowledge. I didn't know anything about it at this
Of
point because he
course,
just said that
these
we're going to
men,
open.
these
I
entrepreneurial
mean,
men. It sounds like my son or my one of my sons would have done this. I can see
yes,
that for sure.
yes. So he was like, well, not really. But anyway, he's like, well, let's just go see. And so I was like, sure, take me to Fairhope. We'll stay at the Grand. Like, we'll just go by there.
Right.
It'll be fine. But once I got on the equipment and tried it and visited the center, I was like, okay, there's something to this. I could see it made sense to me. But I still was like, I have 4 kids. I'm homeschooling. I'm not giving that up to
Mhm.
do this. You're going to have to find a manager. Well, he, moved forward in the process, and I was still kind of not willing to be involved at this point. But I told him, I was like, you're going to have to find a manager. So we found Sandy. Matt knew her from the gym world,
Mhm.
and she's fantastic. And of course, she just
She
threw herself.
really is. She
Is
is so wonderful. Yeah.
Yes.
You're
And
lucky to have her. Yeah.
yes. I mean, again, God provided, because we would not
Mhm.
have been able to do it without the right people in place.
Mhm.
But she threw herself into it and learned as much as she could learn. She had about a year before we got open.
Mhm.
And so we're coming up on 1 year. I got involved, I guess, about 3 months before we opened. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, if I don't jump in, this is probably going to crash and burn.
Because he's still got his full-time mortgage job.
Right. And I mean,
And the mortgage business was
all over the
especially
place.
during that, yeah,
Yes.
so hot, right? I
Yes.
mean, I'm
Yes.
sure he was like busy.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and like I love him and we balance each other out, but he is a visionary. He's the big picture. He is not a
Oh,
detail person.
yeah,
So,
I'm like that too. I'm the
yes.
visionary. Yeah.
Yes. So that it was time for me to get involved. And it was really invigorating for me because, I was able to do things and use, parts of my brain that had not been used for a while. So it was a lot of
Hmm.
fun and I enjoyed it. But when we got open, I spent about the first couple months here just about every day. And that was tough. There was not a lot of things. There were a lot of things at home that just got left undone for a little while.
Okay, but I know everybody that's listening saying like, well, how could you do that if you were homeschooling and you have your daughter Tinley is in a wheelchair
She is.
and she can't verbally, she how does she
Yes.
communicate?
Well, she has a Toby speech device that we are working with her on, but she doesn't love it because she's social and she'd rather look at your face and talk to you. So she can very well make her wants and needs known, but in a nonverbal way.
Mhm.
We were very blessed. I had a cousin here in town that was finishing up nursing school at the time,
Mm,
and she was able to be there and help the kids with their school while I was here. So again,
okay.
it was just another one of those details that I'm like, the Lord just had his hand. It was just meant to be.
Right, right, right. Okay. So tell us more about Osteostrong and how it can help people, because I
Yeah.
think that people still, I think of it from the osteopenia, osteoporosis world, but you're right. You have a lot of different modalities there that can help so many people.
Yes. Yes. So we are a biohacking center.
Mhm.
Biohacking is getting the most effect in the least amount of time. So the majority of what we do is strengthening the skeletal system. And of
Mhm.
course, most people don't think about their bones until there's a crisis, but everybody starts losing bone at the age of 30.
Mhm.
So we're trying to educate people like don't wait until you reach that point to where you have that diagnosis. But after menopause, women start losing at a rate of up to 2% a year.
Mhm.
So it is much, much faster. And so there was just a need, a lot of people do not want to get on the medications, because they have such terrible side effects. Um, there was just a need. And so in that first week, we saw people come in, people that had had breast cancer that were young but had breast cancer and it had just totally wiped out their bones, just crying and saying thank you so much, like I finally have hope, I feel like I have somewhere to go. So the premise of what we do majority is strengthening the skeletal system. So it's to kind of bring the science down. It's based off of Wolff's law, which basically says that the bone's going to adapt under the pressure that it's put under. So we allow you to put pressure on your bones in a very safe way that emulates impact, that causes your body to naturally respond and grow bone. Do what it's already made to do in a natural way and strengthen that bone density. In the meantime, it also strengthens the tendons, the ligaments, and the joints. So it's going to help with that knee pain, with that back pain. The other modalities and things that we have, everybody starts off on a vibration plate. That is known to lower your cortisol levels. So I try to stand on it as much as I can while I'm here.
Yeah, especially, yeah, because I talk about that all the time, that when our cortisol levels are elevated, that's where we get the belly fat from. So
Right.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yes.
exactly.
Yes. So we have that. And again, we've had people that have come in, that have had different issues with just like lymphatic drainage, not being able to, get things moving. And you stand on the vibration plate and it helps with that, because we know that that has so many impacts in our health as well. If that system is
Mhm.
not moving and we're not detoxing, then it backs up.
Mhm.
We have full body red light therapy, which most people, when they think about red light, they think about the dermatologist and your face,
Yes.
which it is. A lot of people call it needleless Botox. It is fantastic for your skin because it increases your collagen production naturally. That's also good for your bones, but that helps with detox. Red light helps with your mood. It can help with recovery, helps with sleep. Like you just feel better. And I feel like, especially during those winter months when we just can't get enough sunlight, like it is just so important.
Mhm.
We also have pulse electromagnetic field therapy. So, grounding, everybody hears about that now. It's kind of a fad. We were made to walk on the earth. We're all electrical beings. We have everybody has electricity. There's a range, there's good electricity, and then on the other end there's bad. So we're surrounded by our Wi-Fi and our 5G and our microwaves and our smartwatch and all of these things that are draining us of energy, but we've got to have something to replace that. So we're not walking around on the earth barefooted as much as we maybe once were. So our PEMF mats recreate the energy of the earth in a much powerful way. So they're great for pain. Anywhere you have damaged tissue, it's going to increase the blood flow there and help it to heal. But you also get 8 hours of protection from EMFs from laying on it.
Wow, I didn't know
Yes,
that. That's
it
really
can help
cool.
it can help take you out of that fight or flight mode. That's what I found for me, that I was always
Mhm.
so highly vigilant because of just all of the things, that it would actually make my body relax and rest. So many benefits. We have Normatec boots, which help with, it's a compression therapy.
Mhm.
Most people don't know we actually also have a hip attachment, which is my favorite. If you have lower back pain or anything like that,
Mhm.
it helps with that. It'll help with flexibility in the hips, which has so much to do with our posture and how we carry
Mhm.
ourselves and how we're able to, do exercise moves with that range of motion. We have a biocharger, which that one everybody's like,
Mhm.
what is that?
Yeah, it
um,
is. It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
it is. It's very different than anything you've ever seen, but it uses, a lot of people are familiar at least with frequencies. So it's a
Mhm.
type of frequency therapy
Mhm.
and has very specific, recipes that we can run from everything from bone to inflammation. Stuff as specific as, there's one for celiac that we put
Wow.
my daughter in front of it. There's one for cerebral palsy. So it's,
Wow.
yes, very powerful.
That's so cool. And I love that term biohacking because what that means too is that we can do it very quickly.
Yes.
So when I come in there, I can be in and out in 15 minutes. And in that 15 minutes, I could get on the core plate. I can go through the sizes. What is it? It's one, two, three,
Spectrum. Yep.
four,
Four.
four
Four of
machines.
them. Yep.
And then I could probably sit on the PMF mat. Oh, and you have that massage chair
Oh,
too,
yes.
which I
Yes. So,
love that massage chair.
yes.
And yeah, and I love compression and I love the red light therapy and what's the other, the biocharger. It's really
Mhm.
cool. And I've loved sitting in there with other people too,
Yes.
because I think that's kind of neat that you can, and like 3 or 4 people can sit in there together and take advantage of it. So
Yes.
you
They
have
call
so many modalities there. So it's not just one thing, but you really only want to come for the Osteostrong machine. What do you call it? Those strength
bone loading.
building,
It's
the
called
bone
Spectrum, but
loading.
yes, the
Okay.
bone loading.
You only want to come there once a week for that. That's all you need to come, right?
Correct. Once a week, because it takes bone 7 to 10 days to recover. We know with muscle that you can work, the same muscle group, give it a day rest and you can be back at it. But bone takes longer to recover. So 7 to 10 days is what they say. We say once a week because it's just easier to remember and fit on your
Right.
schedule.
Okay, so tell me, I know you've got some great stories to tell, and Sandy may even be better to tell some of these stories, but I know you know some of the stories where it has really, really changed people's lives.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we just had a member come in and she's been with us for about 8 months and she had a 12% increase in her bone density.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So, I mean, just that peace of mind. But then one that comes to mind is she's become a dear friend. She is a Pilates instructor here in town and she had breast cancer. And literally, her muscles were pulling away from her bone in her hips.
Oh.
She could hardly walk on her own 2 feet. And she would come for a long time. She was coming every single day to do the other modalities.
Mhm.
She is now back teaching Pilates and
Wow.
smiling.
Uh,
And she says, I can walk my own dog, for
uh,
the first time in a long time. I mean, she tells us like that it has just drastically changed her life.
wow. That is so amazing. So amazing. So let me ask you this. So how do people, do y'all Is the DEXA scan the best way to measure your bone density?
That's a complicated question, Deanna.
I figured it was. So that's why I thought I'd ask you.
That is, that has been the standard of practice for everybody for a long time. They're not super reliable because picture this. Say you go outside in the very same position, you take a picture, and then a year later, you're going to come back and you're going to take the same picture. Even if you stand in the exact same position, face the camera in the exact same way, it's probably going to be a little bit different, right? You're not going to get an exact same picture. So the same is true with the DEXA. All that it's really showing is how much light is getting through the bone. And you have to go to the same place on the same machine, preferably with the same tech, to have any kind of reliability with it. But the problem is they put people on medications to try to, increase their bone density. All that is increasing is the outer shell of the bone. So it's not showing as much light getting through, but that's why people still have fractures and still have breaks, because the quality of the bone, you're not actually strengthening that inner portion of the bone to make it strong. So there is a new blood marker test that they're just kind of starting to do some that will show the osteoclasts and osteoblasts that are happening within the bone to actually see if it's rebuilding itself.
That's
so I don't really have a great answer for you.
No, I remember talking to Sandy about that, and I felt it's like, wow, that is so interesting. So interesting. Okay. Well, I could talk to you forever, and I know we're going to have so many questions for you.
Yes.
I mean, it's so amazing. I'm so amazed with what all you're doing. So I have to ask you this question too, before we go though. How do you create some sort of, and do you even believe in this balance in your life? Because I think that's what we all want, is right balance. And I even named my programs Balance, because I think that's what we want. Now, is that achievable? Oh, so what does balance mean to you, and how do you create that in your own life?
I do think that that's something that we all have this romanticized idea of, is some kind of balance. If I could just balance everything, then it would be better. I'm like, I don't think that that's real. And I've had to learn that, like, there are seasons in life that are certain areas are going to require more of you. And some of that, to me, some of that balance is releasing some of that control and knowing that, you know what, it's okay. And it's going to be okay. And kind of just going into it open-handed, that there are days that I have to be at Osteostrong and I don't get as much done with my kids. But then there are days that we have intentional one-on-one time and we probably do more than what they might get in public school in 3 days. So it's just, I think it's more of a ebb and a flow, and just rhythms. And if you're doing things that you believe in, then I think that in the end that it's all just going to work out. And I know that when I'm here, I'm doing something good, that we are helping people, that we're loving on people that come in here. Like, we are doing good things, putting good things out there into the world. And so I don't have
what are you doing for you?
Oh, goodness. My kids and I are part of a homeschool co-op, and I have found some of the best women there. And so that has been just refreshing to my soul, just genuine, authentic friendships, and just taking the time to do some of those kinds of things. And, I love to be out in the sunshine, so I really try to put down all of my to-dos when it's pretty and just go for a walk outside and just breathe, just try to really be present where I'm at.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Okay. So let's tell everybody about Osteostrong, where they can find y'all. And if somebody is listening to this and well, first of all, if you're in Birmingham, come on into Birmingham. But if you're not, you can go online and look for other locations, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because there's other locations all over.
There are worldwide. So our local website is osteostrongbirmingham.com. You can go on there and find out, read some of the science, find out, about the different modalities that we have. You can also schedule, a free appointment with us to come and check it out and see what we do. You can call us. Our number is 205-203-8755. Sandy will take care of you. If you're not local, the website is osteostrong.me, and you can look up all the different locations and find one that's close to you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for spending the time today. I know you're super busy, and now I'm like, even know that you're even more super busy, but I'm so glad to meet you and hear your story. Yes. And thank you so much for bringing Osteostrong to Birmingham.
Well, thank you for having me, and we're so glad that you're a part of our Osteostrong family.
Thank you.